Hello, folks. You are listening, viewing the Deal by Me podcast with uh, Dr. James W. Smith, your host. This is where we ask guests to tell us your story. Their stories can be very inspiring and encouraging and also transforming. Today we have with us Demetrius Matthew, the founder of Legacy Media LLC, who had the vision to create something much bigger than himself. With one goal in mind, he developed Legacy Media LLC, which is a platform that would allow him to create his own narrative and leave something behind that would withstand the test of time. It's very interesting because he also has with him Mr. Klein, who also he has done the documentary of, and so I'm fortunate to have both share with me today. An honor it is to have this privilege, and so I want to first of all start by just asking Demetrius. I hope you don't mind me calling you Demetrius. Am I
That's fine.
okay? Okay. So Demetrius, would you first tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you want to introduce Mr. Klein and how this all came about, would be very helpful to listeners today. Would you do that for us?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, my name is Demetrius Matthews. So I'm a grew up on the west side of Chicago. You know, back in the my reality, my vision of my last I remember growing up. It was pretty much doing the Reagan trickle down economic area. Where there was basically widespread poverty between my family and everyone I knew during that time. Basically, if anyone can recall the movie, the series Good Times, that was my life. And so basically, what happened is that during my years of growing up, I never really understood, why no one really explained to me why we really didn't have anything. And we would travel as a kid downtown, and we would see other people live and the way that they were happy. I never really understood that as a child, but as I got older, I was faced with a learning disability. My school year when I first started going to school, um, the teachers met with my mom probably maybe in third, fourth grade, and they said that I had a learning disability. And I was disturbed with that because a disability means something's wrong with you. And my mom, was a young mom. She had us when she was 17 years old. I'm older. I'm the eldest of maybe of two other younger sisters by my mom. And so she explained to me that there was nothing wrong with me. I didn't have a learning disability. She said that they were teaching me things. They were testing me on things that I was never taught. And she knew then that there was a crack and there was a flaw in the public school system. But so she really, being her oldest boy and her son, that I was later understood that she wanted so much that she really instilled in me and always put me in front of people that can help me, to learn. And so back in the day, during the once Reagan came into office, this was going into my sixth grade. He had a study done, and the superintendent he declared Chicago public school systems were the worst school systems in the country, and I still agree with him on that. And so what happened is that I guess Mr. Kling will tell Mr. Kling later told us that he put together a system. He said he wanted your best and brightest teachers to come down and teach, you know, uh, into the west side of Chicago. And so we happened to be in Mr. Kling's class. And so during those 3 years, we were testing out in high school levels that we could talk about later. But those 3 years had a profound impact on my whole life. And he taught us the things about being aware, and put a lot of racial issues on the table for us, and let us know that there is a strategy, and that we are the prey, so to say. And we're going to be judged by the way we speak and by the way we write. And he instilled into us, and also being a white man from the suburbs coming to teach us, to tell us to watch out, and that there are certain segments of the population that happens to be white that wants us to fail. So fast forward that, after 8th grade, going into high school, typical situation, typical black men, young men story, getting into trouble, wasn't really appreciated in high school, became defiance because I felt that I wasn't wanted, I was rejected. And so I got into trouble, but somehow I tumbled through, and I always had Mr. Clean teachings to roll back on. And so when really everything hit the fan, a lot of my friends, a lot of my peers didn't have anything else to go on, to draw off of. And I had those teachings from Mr. Clean. So I ended up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, ended up, finishing my last few months of high school, went to college. And the teachers there, they sponsored me, and helped me fill out. They sponsored me and gave me grants to go to college, because they said that, there was something about me. Plus my scores were so high.
Wow.
But they didn't understand the troubled records I got from my high school. They couldn't add those up. So, and here I am now, business owner, been in business for about going on 20 years, my own IT consulting firm. And also entrepreneur in other areas such as music video recording, production studio, real estate investment, and construction. So everyone asks me, how did you make it out of Chicago? Where are you from? I say, Chicago. How did you make it out of Chicago? The west side of Chicago? You're not from the west side of Chicago. How did you make it out of Chicago? I don't understand, And it always draws back to Mr. Clean. And so one of these days I say, we would meet with Mr. Clean, and we would talk, because it was 35 of us in that classroom, very overcrowded. But he took time with each and every one of us. And I told him one day, about 6 years ago, I said, I want to write a book about you, because I love to write. My mom's a poet, and he says, if anyone gonna write a book about me, I want it to be you. And so that's what I wanted to do. That was always my dream. So, but what happened is that I had all this film equipment and all this video equipment, and I made YouTube videos on bulldogs, and I also directed, music videos. And so I said, let me just do a documentary on it, just put it out on YouTube, and for my classmates to see, because this is Mr. Clean, everyone cherishes him. And so I ended up, putting out an ad on Craigslist and looking for another videographer and a cameraman to help. I got my little brother, which was 16 at the time, gave him a camera. I packed up all my video recording equipment. We drove to Chicago, and we met with Mr. Clean for 3 days straight, and we interviewed him for 3 days straight. And then we stayed there another additional 5 days, picking up the B-roll and the pictures of the city and going to the school. It was amazing. It was just fun. I never really set out. That's what I thought was going to be like a great project. Like, I finally got something I wanted to do off the table, And 6 months later, once we were done with it, we entered into the Twin Cities Film Festival, and it was nominated to one of the best documentaries of 2021.
Wow.
And
What a story.
It was divine. It's just like all happened just like that. And I was like, whoa.
What a story.
That's my story in a nutshell.
So as a result of all that is the reason you really did the documentary, Mr. Clay. Am I correct about that? And
I just wanted to show the appreciation and gratitude for him, Mr. Clean, because a lot of people, I kind of had a feeling that his family doesn't really know how much of a great man he is, as far as like what he impacted us. Because my story is no different from the other 30 of my other classmates. We have a math professor. We have a guy who worked for the CIA in cybersecurity. I mean, they all had the same stories. We all had the same stories. And
Mm.
so I'm like, I'm gonna, why he's alive and
So
not, coming up, to that,
I,
so
let me
that's
let
it.
me let me stop you 1 minute, Demetrius, because I think, especially when it goes out on YouTube, that folks need to be able to look and see that you have Mr. Klein with you today. How how did that come about? You just has he been with you with many of these other interviews, or you just wanted him to be a part of this setting today? How did this transpire?
Well, the most, like I said, is that I didn't plan any of this. This is all divine. I just answered the call.
Okay.
So what happened is that when we got this documentary out, we showed it to Mr. Clean and we had a dinner when we invited all of our former classmates to dinner and we saw the film. And Mr. Clean also brought some of his former coworkers that he worked with. And so one of them pulled me aside. He said, this is really good for Tom because, when Tom left Douglas and, he's been battling with depression, and he's been, kind of withdrawn from a lot of people. And this has really brought him out,
Hmm.
and then all of these things started coming out that I didn't know after 8th grade because not only me being thrust into the dark side of the west side of Chicago, Mr. Clean was faced with his family broke apart. His perfect marriage, his perfect life was in jeopardy, because of the time that he spent with us. So he was facing a divorce. I mean, he was blackballed. We were in the newspaper for being one of the most academically acclaimed students, in the Chicago public school system. But his teaching style, giving us the real facts and the reality, he was blackballed from a lot of schools, which he had a principal's degree to teach, to be a principal. So there was like depression. He was going through, family struggles, with his first wife. He was, distance from everyone in his family. So he went through a lot of things that we didn't see as children,
Hmm.
and all of this came apart. And so we've always would have a pizza day with him where we would all come into Chicago and we would invite him out to pizza. So, and we would invite him out to dinner and everything. So we've always been in touch with Mr. Clean, and so that's why he's here right now. So we're talking, we're strategizing. It's just like, if if he's Yoda and I'm the Jedi.
Let,
That's
let me
pretty
let
funny.
me let me ask this then, Mr. Klein, how do you feel about this? I'm just curious. How do you feel about this?
I hope you can hear me. Can you?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, thanks. I said this on the tape. You've probably heard it already. But I think to put this into a few words, often when I go to bed at night, I need a sense that I'm worthwhile. And as I said in the tape, when I need validation, when I need a sense that not only did I do a good job with a bunch of young people, but they ironically or not ironically, I don't know which it is, have given me more than I could have ever given them. Now I know with the humility, Demetrius and the others, that it's hard for them to accept that, but it's true. I'm a common man. I've always been, not necessarily extraordinary. But those 3 years in Austin at Douglas Middle School, like Demetrius said, there was some kind of divine intervention there that brought us together and made a 3-year experience into something that was It's pretty remarkable. Impossible to forget. You know, I could, at the dinner on the tape, you know, I told the gathered students, now adults, that the night before the dinner, I looked through the tape and I saw all of the young people, then kids, now people in their 40s. And I could name every one of them. I knew them all, though I hadn't seen quite a few of them in decades, but I knew them. I knew their names. Yeah, I imparted stuff that was important, but they valued me.
Well said.
You know, in a milieu where, you know, often, you know, there's adversarial relations between students and teacher. And I had that through, I taught in Chicago for 33 years, you know, I mean, I had the adversarial relations at times, but they were all just so fine. Every one of them.
All right.
And I'm 72 on Wednesday. And I've remembered them ever since I left Douglas. And they will be at the front of my mind for the rest of my life.
What a story. What a story. What a story. And Demetrius, you're to be commended. I mean, this is just awesome. And I hear that you wrote a book before you did the documentary. Is that correct?
No, that was the documentary was first. I wanted to originally set off to write a book. That's
Okay.
what I wanted to do, but then the documentary came
Oh,
before that.
okay. Okay.
So now what we're doing is that we're actually writing the drama series
Oh,
of
beautiful.
those 3 years of what happened with at Douglas Middle School.
Okay.
And so yes, we're working on a book now, as
And
well
so
as a movie drama series.
Douglas Middle School, that's located right in the west side of Chicago. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Very, very, very interesting. I'm really kind of don't hardly know what to say because this your story is so exciting and so awesome, and especially to see Mr. Clayton here with you, and we're all in a part of this interview, is something that's just so well, I guess unimaginable. It's really very, very interesting. Let me ask you this, Demetrius. Uh, I'm an I'm a pastor retiring at the end of this year, and will be short of 32 years, too much short of 32 years. And what I want to do with my podcast is to have people to come on, share their experiences and events in their lives, and be able to kind of share with listeners how that those experiences and events can benefit them, and how you have also been benefited from what you've gone through. Can you share a little light on that? Uh, how you think listeners can benefit from what has happened to you, uh, and also how has it helped you in with your daily challenges?
Yeah, I think that I'm a true believer because I know for a fact 100% that education saved my life.
Okay.
Because I've, growing up in the 80s and then sent with the pre-crack pandemic, I seen a lot of my friends. We've all started in the same way. We all wanted a little bit of money. We all wanted to be independent, financially independent. And and that money was coming into our neighborhood, and it was trickling in it, and it was sparkly, and it was shiny things, and we were attracted to that, and we all were. And once I realized that it was a trap, I was able to back away and then maneuver into other things. I would have been a doctor if my dad would have been a doctor. If I would have been a lawyer, if my dad would have been a lawyer. You know, we had no one in our community telling us that we can be anything else but what we see, because they didn't know either.
Hmm.
You know, so but I knew that there was something else out there. And once I got out of the neighborhood and to other communities, and going to Minneapolis was like a mass suburbia. It was like, whoa, you actually can make a money being an accountant, and you don't have to take penitentiary chances. You know, you can be a veterinarian. I love animals. I mean, so that world was a possibility. But growing up in that box in Chicago, we didn't see anything. We just had this one man coming in from Evanston, Illinois, who told us that we're going to be judged by the way we speak and by the way we write. Speak well and write the best you can, and I'm going to teach you how. He gave us the math. You know, we had debates, we had critical thinking. He taught us how to learn. Every one of us had individual learning styles, you know, and he taught us every skills. And we're sitting down with 30 children, 35 children, you know, one by one, making sure they understood. And once he taught us how to learn, he put every subject that he put into us, we mastered it. You know, we were reading college books at that time. He took his own money. This was no school curriculum. He took his own money to buy us books. You know, he was going to school to be a lawyer. He took up teaching to get a part-time job just to make some money. Ended up being a teacher for 35 years because he realized that he was on the front line. He really was a freedom fighter, you know. And we read books like Raisin in the Sun, Kaffir Boy. We read all of these type of books that talked about racial issues. You know, we discussed reparations. In
Wow.
6th, 7th grade, we were debating, and there was a team that he composed on supporting reparation, and then he had a team that did not support reparations.
Wow.
And so first time I heard what devil's advocate was, like, I don't really agree. Why am I trying to defend this point? You know, I mean, so he ran that class like it was a college. He was a professor in a college university. Seriously.
Wow. Exciting. What is it that you would like for listeners to take away from? Do you have is there a way that they can hear your documentary? Just, you know, give me some tagline that
Yeah.
listeners can really share in this documentary or whatever you're gonna want us to see.
Well, I think what I would like your listeners to take away is that, well, the documentary is on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It's on Amazon Prime. The title was Kling, with Kling, Kling, a teacher who defied the system. You know, and what I would say the takeaway from this whole interview, meeting, is just educate your children as many subjects as possible, as much as you can, and really, really study them to see what their strengths are, to give them that. It's the blessing to have your kids knowing what they like to do, what they're meant to do at an early age.
Think you got muted again. Okay.
So, educate your children as much as possible, because once they get to the age of 15, 16 years old, they're going to be out there making their own decisions. They have a platform or a base to use. Hopefully they could, you know, make the right decisions from that. You know, and last but not least, let's really equip the teachers with much as they can. I would say that the whole education system needs to be rehauled in a revolution. You know, there's no reason why Oak Park, Illinois schools have, you know, an abundance of wealth, knowledge, the best schools, the best computers, the best literature, the best equipment, the best teachers. But then the west side of Chicago, the south side of Chicago, the school system is in poverty, lacks of equipment, lacks of teachers, a lack of resources. You know, if we're all Americans and we all pledge allegiance to the same flag, why can't we have the same schools no matter what our color is?
Wow. Well, there you have it. Demetrius,
So I want
Matthew.
to pass the ball to Mr. Clean so he can just go ahead and bring it in.
All right, Mr. Kling. You have anything you want to share with us as we close out this segment?
A lot of things actually, but I became their teacher when I was 34 years old. I would stay with them for 3 years. And I'd say by the time I was in my mid 20s, I was starting to have the epiphanies that told me that this just doesn't work. The society just doesn't work. And by the time I got into their class, I had a strong social agenda. And perhaps unknowingly, I tried to combine that agenda with teaching stuff that I want my own child to know. But Daniel, my kid, was exactly the same age as they were when I was with them. And I think about him often in the Evanston schools that were privileged schools, and what I didn't see that he had in the school I taught in.
Ms. Clang, bring yourself down a little bit so we can see your face. Let yourself down a little bit. There you go, right there. That's good. That's
Okay.
good.
Okay. No, I've been privileged all my life, you know, for obvious reasons. I've carried a great amount of guilt with me all my life. I was labeled an extremely sensitive kid, sensitive in a good way, perhaps not in a good way. I was always sensitive to the disparities as I saw them, and I saw some that living right next to Chicago. The disparities were unbelievable, and I took that realization into the classroom with me when I began to teach in the public schools. Like Demetrius said, I didn't plan on being a teacher. I was signed up for law school, and then we found out Daniel was coming, and I needed a job, right? So I became a teacher. It was easy to do back in those days, But I was on a mission. I'm on a mission today, perhaps more intense than in my mission of 35 years ago. I just, I'm astounded. I'm astounded by the way so many of our people think. I'm just astounded. And I want to continue to make some kind of a difference in the years I have left. Because this country for me is still a great disappointment. And I don't know at this moment solutions. Macro, micro, all I know is I did what I had to do. I did what I had to do. I did what I thought was with them important. You need to know this stuff, right? My kid is learning it in the same grade now that they were in, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I want them to know it too. Or I wanted them to know it.
Well, Ms. Klein and Demetrius, this has been awesome. I do appreciate you sharing, and all I can say is I'm just feel being a minister. This has touched me today, and so the story is one that's very amazing, and I trust the listeners will truly hear this, and as they listen to the podcast and view it on YouTube, and will really get to pull it up on Amazon, and I think folk will truly do that. And so I'm going to make certain that listeners are aware. And again, I want to just thank you so very much, Demetrius, for agreeing to the interview. And Mr. Klein, thank you also for sharing with us today. And there we have it. Again, Demetrius Matthew, the founder of Legacy Media, LLC, who had a vision to create something much bigger than himself, which is really, really awesome. God bless you and take care.
Thank you.
And we truly love you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.